Undercover boss buys a vehicle at his dealership, freezes when he hears two customers whispering. The morning sun spilled gently across the polished cars of Grant Motors Fairview, their metallic surfaces shimmering like liquid silver under the vast open sky. Inside the sleek glass showroom, the sales team stood in formation. Their crisp suits, rehearsed smiles, and sharpened instincts were designed for profit. Every handshake here had a price. Every friendly laugh was calculated, and every deal was a game. It was just another ordinary day at Fairview, or so they thought. Among the casual customers wandering through the showroom was a man nobody paid attention to. Simple jeans, a worn leather jacket, an unassuming walk. He moved like any other middle-aged customer browsing for a car, but that man was Oliver Grant, the founder, the CEO. The visionary had built Grant Motors from a single repair shop 30 years ago into one of the most respected automotive empires across the state. But growth came with a price: distance, blind spots. Lately, letters had arrived at his office, too many to ignore. Stories of unfair trade-in deals, aggressive sales tactics, customers walking away feeling small. On paper, everything looked perfect, but the paper never told the whole story. And Oliver Grant knew better than anyone. If you want to know the truth about a business, you don't read the reports. You walk the floor. You listen when nobody knows your name. And that was exactly why he was here today. Oliver Grant moved slowly across the showroom floor. The faint creak of his boots was swallowed by the soft murmur of casual conversation, the low hum of engines idling outside, and the occasional ring of the front desk phone. No one looked at him twice. Perfect. That was the dangerous thing about power. If you wore it long enough, people stopped telling you the truth. They smiled. They polished numbers. They gave you exactly what they thought you wanted to hear. But this quiet space between the deals, between the lines of a report, this was where the truth lived. Oliver let his fingertips brush over the hood of a well-kept sedan, a habit from long ago, back when his hands were stained with engine grease, not ink from boardroom pens. He could feel it like muscle memory. But it wasn't the cars he was watching. It was the people. To his left, a young family with wide eyes stood near a sales desk, the father nervously glancing at paperwork, the mother cradling a sleeping toddler. To his right, a sharply dressed man was being escorted toward the premium lot, the words "low interest rate" and "exclusive deal" drifting through the air like baited hooks. Oliver's sharp eyes didn't miss a thing. The subtle tightening of a salesman's jaw when a customer hesitated. The way an employee's smile dimmed as soon as a client looked away. And worse, the hollow tone of those rehearsed promises. But then, he heard it. A soft voice. Fragile. Hesitant. The kind of voice that didn't belong in a place like this. "Is there really nothing more you can do, sir?" Oliver turned his head just slightly, just enough, and what he saw stopped him cold. Near the trade-in counter, under the cold glare of the showroom lights, stood an elderly couple, Thomas Harris. Tall once, still proud, but bent now by the quiet weight of age. His silver hair was combed back neatly, his hand resting gently atop his cane, and beside him, Evelyn Harris. Her hands clutched tightly to his arm, her small frame looking impossibly delicate next to the chrome and glass that surrounded them. Behind them, parked awkwardly outside, an old blue sedan, a simple car, but the way Evelyn's hand lingered near her heart, Oliver didn't need anyone to tell him. That wasn't just a car. That was someone's story, someone's life, someone they loved. And across from them, arms folded, voice cold, stood Vincent Sharp, showroom manager, polished, calculated. A man who wore his authority like armor, sharp edges only. His words cut like stone. "This is the best offer you're going to get today, Mr. Harris. The market is the market. Your car isn't worth more than $2,000. Thomas hesitated. "It belonged to our son," he said quietly. "He passed away last year, a firefighter here in Fairview. We've kept his car as long as we could, but with medical bills and everything, we just can't afford the repairs anymore." Oliver felt his stomach tighten. Evelyn's voice broke just above a whisper. "It's all we have left of him." And Vincent? Not a flinch. "With all due respect," he said coolly, "sentimental value doesn't change market value. This is business." Oliver's jaw clenched, the old familiar anger rising in his chest. Number, not here? Not in his house? He took a slow breath, steady hands in his pockets, eyes sharp and quiet like a man studying a broken engine. Vincent gestured lazily toward the exit. "If you'd like to move forward, I can start the paperwork. If not," he shrugged. Thomas Harris nodded slowly, the weight of it all settling on his shoulders. Evelyn's eyes glistened. That was when Oliver stepped forward, his boots landing softly against the polished tile, his voice calm, steady. "Excuse me." Vincent turned, clearly annoyed. "This is a private conversation, sir." Oliver's eyes never wavered from Thomas and Evelyn. "I couldn't help overhearing," he said, a faint warmth in his tone. "I'm actually looking for a car myself, and that sedan of yours caught my eye." Thomas looked up in surprise. Vincent's expression darkened. "It's not for sale," he said tightly. "It's being traded in." Oliver smiled faintly. "That's so? Well," he paused, "maybe we can talk outside." Because of what was about to happen next, it would change everything. Oliver stepped outside with Thomas and Evelyn Harris, the heavy glass door whispering closed behind them, shutting out the sterile hum of the showroom. Out here, it was quieter, more real. The wind tugged gently at Evelyn's scarf, the kind of small human moment that didn't exist in spreadsheets or sales reports. Thomas steadied her with a quiet hand. Oliver stood with them near their old blue sedan, its paint dulled by sun and time but clean, cared for, like someone had loved it enough to keep it alive long after its prime. And in a world like this, that mattered more than anyone seemed to remember. Thomas cleared his throat, the kind of sound that carried the weight of pride and reluctance all tangled together. "Sir, we appreciate your kindness," he began, "but we didn't mean to make a scene. We were just trying to do right by our boy." Oliver shook his head gently. "You didn't make a scene," he said quietly. "You told the truth. That's rare enough to deserve respect." Evelyn looked up at him, eyes rimmed with red but still sharp with the strength of a mother who had survived the worst kind of goodbye. "It was our son's car," she whispered. "Mark was a firefighter. This car was everything to him, to us." Oliver let his hand brush along the curve of the driver's side door, like an old ritual he hadn't forgotten. "What happened?" he asked softly. Thomas's jaw tightened. "He was responding to a house fire last winter, ice on the road. The truck lost control coming the other way. He never made it home." Silence fell like a weight between them, and when Oliver spoke again, his voice was lower, like the words came from someplace older than his years. "I'm sorry." And he meant it. But Evelyn, bless her heart, offered a fragile smile. "We kept the car as long as we could," she said. "It felt like a piece of him was still with us. But the repairs, the medical bills, life keeps moving even when you're standing still." Oliver looked at them for a long moment, and then the smallest smile curved at the edge of his mouth. "I'll buy the car from you," he said. Thomas blinked. "Sir, that's kind of you, but we don't want charity." Oliver's smile deepened just a touch. "This isn't charity," he said. "This is respect." He reached into the pocket of his worn jacket, pulling free a checkbook older than most smartphones. The kind of thing men like him still carried because some habits were worth keeping. "I'm offering you $5,000 for the car," he said. Thomas looked like the ground had shifted beneath him. "But it's worth every bit of that," Oliver interrupted gently. "And more." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. "But why?" she asked, the question bare, honest, raw. Oliver's voice was steady. "Because I don't believe in letting something sacred end up on a resale lot like any other machine. I'd like to restore it, in Mark's name. Keep it as a reminder of the kind of man he was." And for a long heartbeat, no one spoke. Because sometimes words just aren't big enough. Thomas's eyes were shining now. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Oliver replied. "Just know that his story doesn't end here. Not on my watch." He scribbled the check, tearing it free with the quiet grace of a man who understood exactly what things were worth. Money wasn't on that list. Memory was. Legacy was. As he handed the check to Thomas, their hands met, the rough calluses of a man who'd worked his whole life against the quiet strength of a man who built his own empire. Different worlds, same code. Behind them, the glass door hissed open. Vincent Sharp's footsteps echoed across the concrete like warning shots. But Oliver didn't even turn. Not yet. Because in this moment, outside, under the honest sun, he wasn't a CEO. He was a son. He was a father. He was a man doing what men were supposed to do. Honor the ones who came before, and protect the ones still standing. Tomorrow? Tomorrow, there would be a reckoning. But today, Oliver Grant just saved something that should never have been lost. And for people like Thomas and Evelyn Harris, that was everything. Oliver Grant stood still for just a breath longer, the weight of that moment settling into his bones like something sacred. But then, the air shifted. The sharp click of dress shoes striking concrete. Vincent Sharp. His voice cut through the quiet like a blade dulled only by arrogance. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you not to interfere with our dealership operations." Oliver turned slowly, the easy calm of a man who had built empires with less noise than this. Vincent crossed his arms, his polished watch gleaming in the sun, a deliberate show of status. "Whatever deal you think you're making out here, it's not how things work." But Oliver? He didn't blink. Instead, he offered one last glance to Thomas and Evelyn, a soft nod that said everything words couldn't. "I've got this." He stepped forward, boots steady, closing the small space between himself and Vincent like a man who had walked battlefields more dangerous than this. "Funny thing about how things work," Oliver said, voice low but clear, "is that sometimes they need fixing." Vincent scoffed, mistaking quiet strength for weakness. "Sir, this is a business. We operate on market standards. Sentimental deals? That's not sustainable." Oliver's gaze sharpened, steel beneath the warmth. "And squeezing grieving parents for an extra $1,000 is..." That landed. Not with Vincent, but with the showroom staff just inside the glass, heads subtly turning, curious eyes peeking toward the confrontation. Vincent bristled. "Look, I don't know who you think you are." And that's when it happened. Oliver reached calmly into his jacket, pulled free a slim, matte black card holder. No rush, no dramatic flair, just the truth. He held out the business card, the one with his name embossed in understated silver. Oliver Grant, President and CEO, Grant Motors Corporation. Vincent stared. Blink, blink. The color drained from his face faster than oil spilling from a cracked pan. Silence rolled through the entrance like a slow-moving storm. Inside the showroom, The staff who had been pretending not to listen? Frozen. Tim, the older salesman. Liam, the quiet young employee with honest eyes. Even customers paused mid-step, the energy shifting like something electric in the air. Vincent's throat worked around words he hadn't prepared for. You're Oliver Grant? Oliver raised a brow, not smug, just tired. Tends to be the case when your name's on the front of the building. Vincent's composure cracked, a faint tremble in the hand still gripping his tablet. I wasn't aware. And that's exactly the problem, Oliver said, his voice dropping to something that wasn't anger. It was worse. It was a disappointment. You didn't know who I was, so you thought this was okay. He let the words hang there. No rush, no need to shout. Truth didn't need volume. Inside, Liam exchanged a glance with Tim, something raw sparking in their eyes. Vincent scrambled. Sir, I was just doing my job, maximizing profits, enforcing policy. Oliver took a step closer, not threatening, just present. My job, he said slowly, is to protect this company's name. To protect people like them, he nodded to Thomas and Evelyn, from people like you. The weight of those words crushed whatever false confidence Vincent had left, but Oliver wasn't finished. He turned, just enough to face the watching staff, the silent witnesses to everything. Starting today, Oliver's voice carried with quiet authority, this ends. The lies, the pressure tactics, the exploitation. He paused. And anyone who has a problem with that knows where the door is. The room was dead still. Vincent's shoulders dropped, years of ruthless habits unraveling in the span of 30 seconds. But Oliver's attention returned where it belonged to Thomas and Evelyn. Sir, ma'am, he said softly, I'll have my team take care of the paperwork for you. Your car stays with me, and so does his story. Thomas's throat worked around emotion too old and too deep for showrooms. Evelyn wiped at her eyes, but this time, there was peace behind the tears. Behind Oliver, the entire culture of Fairview showroom shifted. Tomorrow would be war, but today was a victory. One that didn't show up on balance sheets, one that didn't fit into quarterly earnings reports, but one that mattered more than any of it. Because Oliver Grant wasn't just taking back control of his business, he was taking back its soul. By the time Vincent Sharp disappeared into his office, his footsteps hurried, his posture deflated. The entire mood of Fairview showroom had shifted, not through yelling, not through spectacle, but through something far more dangerous to broken systems: accountability. Oliver didn't bask in it. He didn't need to. He simply walked the showroom floor with the same quiet steadiness he always had. But now, every employee looked at him differently. They knew who he was. More importantly, they knew he had been watching. And suddenly, the forced smiles, the practice pitches, they all cracked under the weight of someone who wasn't fooled by polish. He approached the front desk where Liam stood, the youngest member of the team, maybe 25, with a nervous posture and honest eyes that darted toward Oliver, then down again. Oliver paused. "You've been here a while?" he asked gently. Liam straightened. 14 months, sir." Oliver nodded. "Long enough to know when something feels wrong." Liam hesitated. His fingers tapped anxiously on the counter. "I saw what you did for the Harrises," he said, voice low. "I've wanted to speak up for a while, but this place..." He trailed off. Oliver didn't press. He just waited. Silence, honest silence, had a way of pulling truth to the surface. Liam glanced around, then leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You should know. Vincent wasn't just doing that to the Harrises. That wasn't an isolated thing." Oliver's eyes narrowed slightly, not with surprise, but with the weight of confirmation. He created a system, Liam continued, incentivized it, taught us to profile customers by age, by clothing, even by car keys. If someone looked unsophisticated, we were told to lowball them, push financing packages, add things they wouldn't catch. And if someone refused, Oliver asked, they didn't last long. Oliver leaned in slightly. And you? Liam looked down, shame flickering in his features. I stayed quiet. I needed the job. My dad's in treatment. I couldn't afford to lose it. Oliver didn't judge him. He just let the silence say, I understand. But Liam's next words came with force. I'm not staying quiet anymore. That changed everything. Oliver nodded slowly. Then I want you to help me. Liam blinked. Me? I'm going to clean this place out, Oliver said calmly. But to do it right, I need someone who knows how deep the rot goes. Liam swallowed hard. Vincent kept records, private files, sales audits that don't match what's sent to corporate. He kept them in the back office, locked drawer. And you know the code? Liam hesitated, then nodded. Then tonight, Oliver said, we look. Liam's breath hitched, but he nodded. Yes, sir. A quiet alliance, forged not in rebellion, but in redemption. That evening, after the showroom had closed and the last engine faded down the street, Oliver stayed behind. The building was quieter now, not just because the lights were dimmed, but because the illusion was gone. It was no longer a showroom. It was a crime scene. And Oliver wasn't a CEO anymore. He was a man chasing the truth. Liam arrived at the back entrance, his backpack slung awkwardly over one shoulder, nerves sharp behind his eyes. But he came, and that was enough. They moved quickly, through the office corridors, past rooms dressed in fake wood paneling and motivational posters that meant nothing anymore. In Vincent's office, the drawer was exactly where Liam said, 4-digit code, a soft click. Inside, folders, laminated cheat sheets, internal guides marked Sales Maximization Playbook. Oliver flipped through them, his jaw tightening as each page confirmed what Liam had said. Forced upgrades, hidden fees, a list of rejected refund requests, some of them with customer names Oliver knew from community events. And then photos. A security still of a young woman, maybe mid-30s, crying in the lobby. That's Rebecca Collins, Liam said quietly. She bought a used Altima. They added a $2,200 extended warranty she didn't agree to. Oliver's voice was like steel. And she didn't get it refunded. Liam shook his head. Vincent told her it was policy. Oliver exhaled slowly, the weight of it sitting heavy in his chest. This wasn't just one man's cruelty. This was culture, a system, a rot that had worn his company's name like a mask while it devoured people from the inside, but not anymore. He turned to Liam. I want you by my side tomorrow, Oliver said. We're going to open every file, contact every customer, fix everything we can. Liam's voice was still unsteady, but this time it carried something else underneath. Conviction. Yes, sir. Oliver placed the folder on the desk like a final verdict. The reckoning had begun, not just for Vincent, but for the system that protected him. And in the morning, everyone would know it. Morning came heavy with anticipation, not the usual tension of sales quotas or bonus deadlines, but something deeper. A current was running beneath the floorboards, the kind of silence that happens right before a storm tears the air apart. Oliver Grant arrived before anyone else. He didn't walk in like a boss. He walked in like a man on a mission. He moved past the empty desks, past the glass-walled finance offices, past the row of framed awards still bolted proudly to the showroom wall, awards that suddenly felt meaningless. And when he reached the center of the room, he stopped, waited. One by one, the employees trickled in. Chris from sales, Maya from reception, two junior finance officers in two tight suits, the service manager, the part-time greeter, and Vincent Sharp, still walking like he owned the room. He hadn't yet heard about what had happened the night before. Not really. He didn't know what Liam and Oliver had uncovered. Didn't know that the drawer wasn't locked anymore. Vincent offered a faint smirk when he saw Oliver standing there, but Oliver didn't return it. He turned to the full team, his voice calm and clear. "Nobody's going to their desks just yet," he said. "This morning, we're going to have a real conversation about who we are and who we've been pretending to be." Some employees shifted uncomfortably. Others froze completely. Vincent's smirk faltered. "I've seen the numbers," Oliver continued. "I've seen the reviews. I've read the reports." He paused. "But what I hadn't seen until now is the truth." He reached into his briefcase, pulled out the printed documents from the drawer, the ones Liam had helped retrieve, the ones that outlined the real policies being pushed behind closed doors. "This," he said, holding them up, "is what's been guiding our business." A few employees gasped. Vincent stepped forward, trying to recover control. "That's proprietary training material. Not everyone understands how we—" Oliver cut him off with a glance so cold it froze Vincent mid-sentence. "It's fraud, Vincent, and you know it." The room held its breath. Oliver's tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. Authority doesn't yell. It simply is. "From this moment on," he said, turning back to the team, "everything changes. No more commission boosts for deceptive upsells. No more pressure tactics. No more targeting customers based on what you think they don't know." A silence fell, not of fear, but of disbelief. Oliver stepped closer, letting the moment land. "From today forward, we don't sell fear. We don't sell confusion. We sell trust." Maya, still seated behind her desk, raised a cautious hand. "And what about our income?" she asked gently. "If we're not pushing those packages, how do we survive?" Oliver nodded. It was a fair question. "Starting this month," he said, "we're restructuring the commission model. Bonuses won't be tied to volume anymore." Now he had their full attention. They'll be tied to satisfaction, to honesty, to how many customers walk out of here saying they'd come back, not just because of the price, but because they were treated with respect. Liam stood near the back of the room, quiet, steady, watching, and Oliver caught his eye, just for a second. The smallest nod passed between them, a promise kept. Tim, one of the older sales staff, raised his voice hesitantly. "Respectfully, Mr. Grant, that's not how this industry works." Oliver didn't flinch. "Then we change the industry." He let the words settle before continuing. "I didn't build Grant Motors to be another machine that chews people up. I built it so people like Thomas and Evelyn Harris didn't have to walk into a dealership and feel like they were about to get eaten alive." A beat. "And if that means our numbers look different this quarter, so be it. I'd rather lose profit than lose purpose." Somewhere in the back, Chris exhaled, a long, slow release of pressure he hadn't realized he was holding. Vincent, still frozen near the service bay, finally spoke. "This is insane," he spat. "You're destroying the foundation we've built." "No," Oliver said. "I'm tearing out the rot. The foundation stays." He walked slowly toward Vincent now, not with anger, but with finality. "You've got 10 minutes to clear your desk. You're done here." Vincent scoffed, looking around the room for backup, but no one moved, not even the ones who used to nod along to his meetings. Because truth changes people. And they had seen it now. By the time Vincent left, slamming the door behind him for the last time, the air felt lighter. Oliver turned back to his team. "You're not alone in this," he said. I'm not just giving orders. I'm here, every day, to make sure this place becomes what it was always meant to be. And if you're willing to rebuild with me, I promise you this: Fairview will become the most respected dealership in this city. Liam was the first to nod, then Chris. Then, one by one, hands lifted, heads nodded, and something unspoken passed through the room. Hope. Oliver smiled quietly to himself. It wasn't the kind of smile you fake for a quarterly report. It was the kind that only came when you knew, finally, you were building something real. By the end of the week, the dealership didn't just feel different, it sounded different. Gone were the clipped, aggressive pitches, the tension in voices, the rehearsed closings. In their place, real conversations, questions, pauses, laughter. It hadn't been easy, but it had been honest. And now it was time for Oliver to do what he knew would matter most: face the damage that has already been done. He stepped into his office early that morning with a heavy folder under one arm. Inside it, a printed list of every complaint, every one-star review, and every handwritten letter sent to the Grant Motors corporate office in the last 18 months. He didn't pass it off to an assistant, didn't send a blanket apology email. He read them, one by one. And with each name, each hurt voice, each betrayed customer, he made a call. "Hi, is this Rebecca Collins? This is Oliver Grant. I'm the owner of Fairview Motors. I'd like to talk with you about your experience with us." There was silence on the other end. Then a skeptical reply. "You mean the people who tricked me into a warranty I didn't want and wouldn't return my calls after I signed?" Oliver closed his eyes for a second. "Yes," he said simply. "Those people. And I'm trying to change that, starting with you." That stopped her cold. He invited her back in. No pressure, no promises. Just a seat across from him and a stack of her documents. She arrived later that afternoon. Rebecca was in her mid-30s, with sharp eyes and a clipped tone, the kind of woman who had learned, the hard way, not to let anyone talk over her anymore. She brought the contract, the breakdown of costs, the service invoice for things she never agreed to. And Oliver? He read every word like it was sacred. Rebecca watched him carefully. "You really own this place?" "I built it," he said, "and I let it drift too far from what I meant it to be." She didn't soften easily, but she listened. When he looked up from the final page, his voice was low but firm. "You were charged $2,870 in unnecessary extras, things that were slipped in during financing. That's not just unethical, that's theft." She blinked. "I tried to fight it. No one listened." "I'm listening now," Oliver said, and he pulled out a checkbook. Again. The same worn one from the parking lot with Thomas and Evelyn. He wrote the amount in clean, deliberate ink, tore it free, handed it to her. Rebecca stared at the check. "I don't understand. You're just giving this back?" "I'm returning what was never rightfully ours," he said. "You didn't owe us that money. You never should have been treated that way." For a moment, her voice wavered. "You don't even know me." Oliver gave her a look, kind, tired, steady. "I don't need to. I know what fairness looks like, and I know what betrayal feels like. You trusted us, and we failed you. I can't undo that, but I can start making it right." She nodded slowly, tucking the check away like it might disappear if she blinked too hard, and just before leaving, she turned back. "I didn't think people like you existed in this business anymore." Oliver smiled gently. "They should, and they will." That was only the beginning. He spent the rest of that day and the next doing the same. A young father named Jamal is overcharged on his financing. A retired nurse, Evelyn Monroe, had been convinced into a payment plan that left her choosing between her car and groceries. An immigrant couple who didn't speak fluent English sold the car with the hidden add-ons they didn't understand until the first bill came. Each time, Oliver listened, explained, wrote the check. No cameras, no PR, just a man taking back his word and giving it to the people who deserve better. By Friday, word had spread. Customers walked into Fairview Motors not to buy a car, but to see if the rumors were true. Is the owner really calling people? Did that woman really get her refund? Are they actually fixing old contracts? Yes, they were. That morning, Liam knocked lightly on the glass wall of Oliver's office. We've had 5 new customers in the last hour. 3 came from Grant's old competitors. 2 just want their paperwork reviewed. Oliver looked up. Good. He stood, stretched his back, and picked up the next file from the folder. Let's keep going. Because fixing a broken culture wasn't about policies, it was about people, one story at a time. And Oliver Grant wasn't stopping. Not now, not ever. Oliver Grant didn't need a press release to know when a storm was coming. He could feel it, the way an old mechanic knows when an engine's about to blow just by the shift in vibration beneath their feet. Fairview Motors was quieter now. For the first time in years, the air inside didn't feel poisoned by greed. Liam and the other young employees were working with renewed energy, cautious, yes, but hopeful. But outside those glass walls, the world was shifting, and so was his enemy. It started small, a whisper here, a question there. Customers who'd once walked through Fairview's doors without a second thought now paused at the curb, uncertainty painted in their nervous glances. Oliver sat in his modest office, the sunlight catching dust motes drifting lazily through the air, when Liam knocked gently and stepped inside. Boss. His voice was tight. They've started. Oliver didn't even have to ask who. Michael Turner, owner of Turner Auto Group, the slick, ruthless competitor across town. A man who had spent decades building his empire on low prices, flashy ads, and cutthroat deals. And now he was scared. Scared of what Fairview Motors was becoming. Scared of a business built not on manipulation but trust. Oliver looked up. What's he doing? Liam hesitated. Radio ads, social posts. He's calling us a scam. Telling people we're covering up bad deals with hush money refunds. Says we're desperate. Oliver's jaw flexed. Classic Turner. He didn't attack the crime, he attacked the man cleaning it up. Coward's play. Liam shifted uncomfortably. Boss, it's working. We lost 3 deals this morning. Customers went straight to Turner's lot after hearing his AD. Oliver leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. Let him talk, he said quietly. Liam blinked. Sir? Oliver's voice was calm, measured. Let him talk himself right into a mistake. Because Oliver Grant hadn't survived this long by playing defense, he fought smart. He fought with patience. And above all, he fought for people. Later that afternoon it came. The final shot. A slick local news segment, paid for and produced by Turner's marketing machine, aired across every channel in the county. The headline blazed across the screen, Grant Motors under fire, are refunds hiding years of customer deception? The story was as predictable as it was vile. Clips of customers complaining, old footage from before Oliver had returned, twisted sound bites, claims that Oliver was buying silence, not building trust. Liam stood frozen in the break room, the TV casting cold light across his pale face. Employees whispered. Customers hesitated at the showroom doors. It was working. Turner's poison was spreading. But Oliver Grant? He didn't panic. He didn't yell. He didn't retreat. He simply stood as steady as a stone foundation beneath the weight of a storm and called every employee to the showroom floor. The room fell silent. Oliver's voice was low, but it carried like thunder. I didn't come back here to play safe. His eyes swept the room. I came back to clean house, to rebuild something that matters. And if Turner thinks he can bury us in lies, a faint, dangerous smile touched the edge of his mouth. Let him try. Because tomorrow, Oliver Grant would remind this town exactly who he was. Not a man running from the past, a man fighting for the future. And he wasn't fighting alone. The morning sky over Fairview was heavy with gray, but the air inside Grant Motors burned with quiet resolve. Oliver Grant stood near the front of the showroom, his shoulders squared, his jaw set, dressed not in a suit but in the same worn flannel and dark jeans he'd arrived in on his first day undercover. No polish, no pretenses, just the truth. A small podium had been set up just outside the glass doors, right beneath the flag that fluttered above the dealership, faded, but still standing. Local press vans lined the curb. A crowd was already forming, customers, curious neighbors, and more than a few of Turner's spies disguised behind sunglasses. Liam stood by the front desk, watching nervously as reporters prepped their microphones. "You sure about this, boss?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Oliver didn't look away from the growing crowd. He simply nodded once. "They want to see who we really are." And with that, he stepped outside. The murmurs rippled like a tide, quiet at first, then building. Cameras clicked, phones lifted, reporters elbowed forward, questions already on their lips. Oliver raised a hand. "Good morning?" He waited until the crowd stilled. "I won't waste your time with a speech," he began. "You've all seen the reports. You've heard the accusations. And I want to set the record straight." He glanced toward the cameras, locking eyes with every lens like he was looking through it, straight into every living room in the county. "Yes," he said simply. "We've refunded customers. We've re-examined deals. We've apologized for mistakes that never should have happened." A ripple passed through the crowd. "But here's what you didn't hear. We didn't do that to hide anything. We did it to fix everything." His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Grant Motors, this place, my father's name, means something to this town. And I won't stand by while someone like Michael Turner tries to twist that into a lie for profit." He reached into his pocket and held up a folder, thin, humble, official. "This is a list of every refund we've issued since I returned. You'll find no secrecy, no cover-ups, no hush money, just names, dates, and the exact amounts returned to customers who deserved better." He handed the folder directly to the nearest reporter. "Transparency isn't a slogan here. It's our foundation." From the edge of the crowd, a voice rang out, a woman's voice, steady and clear. "You helped me last week. You gave me back more than money. You gave me back trust." Heads turned. It was Rebecca Collins, the single mother Oliver had personally refunded. She wasn't holding a phone or a camera, just standing there, eyes bright with quiet strength. Oliver nodded to her. "Thank you, Rebecca." Another voice rose. "You fixed my contract after Turner Motors lied about my APR. I came here because you listened. I saw what you did for that elderly couple." One by one, customers stepped forward. Testimonies, not defenses. The crowd was no longer quiet. It was alive. Reporters scrambled to capture each voice. Cameras turned not on Oliver, but on the people. The truth had become its own witness. Oliver turned back to the podium. "Michael Turner thinks honesty is a weakness. He thinks if he shouts loud enough, people will believe anything." He paused. "But here's the thing about noise. It fades. And what stays behind?" He looked around, at the faces of his staff, his customers, his town. That's what matters. With that, he stepped down. No mic drop, no rehearsed line. Just a man who'd said what needed saying and trusted it to stand. The press conference ended, but the energy didn't. Social media lit up. Clips from the live stream spread like wildfire. CEO destroys Turner with truth. The man who refunded his way to redemption, Fairview's real leader. Inside, Liam stared at the TV coverage, wide-eyed. "Boss, you broke the internet." Oliver smiled faintly, sipping his coffee. "Good. Let's make sure they know it wasn't just for show." And in that quiet moment, something changed forever. Not just in the eyes of the customers, but in the hearts of his team. Because leadership wasn't in the press. It was in how he'd made them believe again. That night, long after the cameras were gone, long after the applause faded, Oliver Grant sat alone in his office at Fairview Motors. The walls were quiet again, not with fear like the days before, but with something deeper, reflection. Outside, the night pressed gently against the glass windows, the neon sign of Grant Motors glowing steadily in the dark, like a lighthouse standing watch. But inside, Oliver was far from the towering CEO people saw in the headlines. He was just a man looking at the echoes of everything he had built and questioning how close he had come to losing all of it. His hands rested atop an old photo frame, one he had pulled from the bottom drawer of his desk earlier that night. It was worn at the edges, a black and white picture of a younger Oliver, maybe 25, standing beside his father in front of their first tiny repair shop. No suits, no titles, just grease-stained hands and tired smiles. His father's words echoed in his memory, clear as if they'd been spoken yesterday. "Son, it ain't the size of a business that makes it great. It's whether people trust your name when you ain't in the room." Oliver closed his eyes for a moment, breathing that truth in. He had almost forgotten, somewhere along the years, in the noise of expansion, the pressure of profit, the demands of boardrooms, he had started measuring success by numbers. But this place, Fairview Motors, it wasn't built by numbers. It was built by people, by trust, by stories. Like Thomas and Evelyn Harris, by sacrifice. Like Mark Harris, their son, who gave everything in service of others. And by courage, like Liam, the young man brave enough to stand up for what was right, when it would have been easier to stay quiet. Oliver exhaled, a long, steady breath that felt like letting go of old ghosts. Then he stood. The next morning, before the sun had even crested the horizon, Oliver arrived at the dealership. But this time, he wasn't here just to inspect. He was here to build, to start over, piece by piece. He gathered every employee, not in the sleek, modern showroom, but outside on the concrete lot where it all started. The air was cool with morning dew, the sky painted in soft gold and blue. Liam stood near the front, quiet but steady. Tim, the older salesman who once stayed silent under Vincent's rule, looked different now. Lighter. Even Chris, the service tech who once kept his head down, stood taller. They were ready. Oliver looked at them, not as employees, but as the foundation of something new. "I want to tell you all a story," he began, voice low, real, without corporate polish. "It's about a man who forgot why he started this journey, who let the noise of business drown out the quiet voice of his father, who once told him, loud and clear, that nothing matters more than doing right by people." Silence hung in the air, but that man learned something. It's never too late to remember where you came from, and it's never too late to build something better. He turned slightly, gesturing toward the old blue sedan now fully restored and parked in the center of the lot. Clean, honored Mark Harris's car. "This car isn't just metal and wheels," Oliver said. "It's proof that a legacy isn't measured in money, it's measured in what you leave behind for others." He let those words settle deep. From today on, this company carries a new legacy, not of profit at all costs, but of dignity, of respect, of honesty, even when no one is watching. The employees exchanged glances. The weight of those words pressing in, Oliver smiled faintly. "This isn't going to be easy," he admitted. "Some people will say we're naive. Some competitors will play dirty, but that's not our language anymore." He looked directly at Liam. "That's why I'm promoting you, Liam, head of culture and training at Fairview Motors." Liam's eyes went wide, shock and gratitude flickering raw across his face. "You've got the heart I want every new hire to learn from," Oliver finished. Around them, quiet applause broke out. Not loud, not forced, just real. And that was all Oliver Grant ever needed, because legacies aren't built in boardrooms. They're built right here. In moments like this, on concrete lots, under honest skies, and in the hands of people who refuse to forget what truly matters. A year passed, and with it, the dust of the old world settled. Fairview Motors no longer looked the same. The gleaming facade hadn't changed much. The logo still perched high above the glass, but inside, everything was different. You could feel it in the air the moment you stepped through the doors, not because of better decor, but because of how people looked you in the eye, how they spoke, how they listened. Honesty didn't need a sign on the wall anymore. It was in the way customers smiled when they left. In this way, employees stayed after hours not out of fear, but pride. Liam stood near the welcome desk, clipboard in hand, coaching a group of new hires. He wore no tie, just a navy polo with the Grant Motors emblem stitched near his heart, and a quiet confidence far deeper than before. "Your job," he was saying, "isn't just to sell a car, it's to understand the person in front of you. Ask the right questions. Listen more than you speak. Because if you get the story right, the sale will follow. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. People come first. Always." The new hires nodded, scribbling notes. But it wasn't just the words that moved them. It was that Liam meant every syllable. He wasn't repeating a training manual. He was passing down something living. Across the showroom, Tim stood by a young couple, walking them through financing with calm patience, no pressure, no rush. Chris from the service department joked with a regular customer, wiping grease from his hands while behind him, a sign on the wall now read, "Grant Motors, where character drives every deal." And at the center of it all, the restored sedan. Mark Harris's car, now placed on a low wooden platform near the entrance, surrounded by a simple glass barrier, not for sale, not a trophy, a memorial, with a bronze plaque underneath it that read, "In honor of Mark Harris firefighter, son, a life of service, remembered through action." Oliver had made sure of it. He didn't want the world to forget, not what happened, and not what was rebuilt after. That afternoon, he received a letter, handwritten, mailed, not emailed. The handwriting was familiar. Evelyn Harris. Inside was a photograph. The sedan, parked in front of a small town fire station where Mark had once served. The image was framed with sunlight, a fire truck behind it, and a line of young recruits standing respectfully nearby. Tucked into the envelope was a note. "Dear Mr. Grant, we visited last week, quietly. We didn't want to take your time, but we saw the car. We saw what you built. And we wanted to say thank you, not just for honoring our son, but for making sure no one like him, or like us, ever gets forgotten in the places that matter. Mark would have been proud. So are we. With gratitude, Thomas and Evelyn." Oliver leaned back in his chair, let the silence wash over him. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he was running a company. He felt like he was keeping a promise, not just to the Harris family, not just to his father, but to the young version of himself, the one in the old photo who once believed that a man's handshake should mean more than a dotted line. Fairview Motors wasn't perfect, but it was alive again, clean, respected, A place where good people weren't afraid to do the right thing, and where integrity, not profit, steered the wheel. Because in the end, a car dealership may sell vehicles, but what it carries is something far greater: trust, legacy, and the quiet belief that one person standing up at the right time really can change everything. Oliver Grant looked out the window, smiled to himself, and whispered, not to the board, not to a crowd, but just to the wind, "Let's keep driving forward." At the end of the day, success isn't measured by the cars you sell, or the numbers on a report, or the buildings with your name on them. True success, it is building a place where good people don't have to be afraid, where honesty is louder than sales pitches, where the quiet stories, the forgotten ones, are treated with the respect they deserve. Because legacy isn't made of metal or money. It's made of moments, of character, of how you treat someone when nobody else is watching. That's what Oliver Grant rebuilt at Fairview Motors. And maybe that's what we should all be building wherever we are. Not just a business, but a place worth trusting. Because sometimes, doing the right thing changes more than one life. Sometimes it changes everything.